Hi everyone, Crista Cowan here with another episode of The Barefoot Genealogist. It is time for our What's New at Ancestry. This is the January 2018 edition. It is the new year. We do have lots of new content to cover, but first, like always, I want to start with the upcoming events. Now, if you are new to Ancestry or new to these videos, you might not be aware that there are genealogical conferences that are held all over the country and all over the world throughout the year. There are several major events that Ancestry attends. I will be speaking at most of these events as well, and so if you have an event that is in your area or something that you can make arrangements to attend, we would love to meet you at these events. So what you'll see on your screen there is the first thing coming up is the largest genealogical conference in the world. It's Roots Tech. It's held in Salt Lake City every year. I think this will be the 5th year that they have held this event. It's going to be a little bit later this year. Usually it's been toward the end of January, beginning of February. This year it's going to be at the end of February and the beginning of March. So it's the 28th of February through the 3rd of March. I do know that there are hundreds of classes to choose from, hundreds of vendors in the exhibit hall. There are computer labs that you can attend. I am doing a computer lab and just found out yesterday that it was sold out, and so they added a second session. The second session sold out, so now they have added a third session, or are doing that soon. So if that's something that is interesting to you, I will be teaching a lab about using Ancestry DNA with some of my colleagues here from Ancestry. I think I'm also teaching 3 other classes at that event, but like I said, hundreds of classes to choose from in all sorts of different topics, so there is something for everyone at this particular event. If you can't attend the event in person, Roots Tech does stream classes from that event. Now, they don't stream all of the classes, but they do stream a particular class each hour for the days of the conference. So if you go to rootstech.org, you can check out their full schedule there and look into information about registration if you are interested in attending that event in person. We would love to see you there. Next up is the National Genealogical Society's annual conference. This is a conference that rotates cities every year, and so this year it will be the 2nd through the 5th of May, and that's going to be in Grand Rapids, Michigan. So if you live, again, in or around Grand Rapids, that should be a fairly easy conference for you to get to. But even if you don't, people come in from all over the country, all over the world to attend some of these genealogical conferences. It's a great way to network with other genealogists. The learning is just accelerated in a conference environment. Now, one of my favorite conferences of the year is the Southern California Genealogical Society's annual Jamboree. It is held in Burbank every year. This year, it's a weekend earlier. It's going to be the 31st of May through the 3rd of June. Now, technically, or officially, the conference runs, I believe, Friday and Saturday, maybe Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But the first day of the conference, the Wednesday of the conference, they're actually doing a DNA day. They're doing a family history writing day. So the conference itself is over the weekend, but then the tack-on day is at the beginning of this particular event with some extra things. You can check out their website if you just do an internet search for Southern California Genealogy Jamboree. Now, the International Association of Jewish Genealogical Societies, they hold their conference in a different city in the world every year. This year it's going to be in Warsaw, Poland. Now, one of the things that I like to point out about this particular conference, yes, it is very heavily about Jewish genealogical research, but because it's in Warsaw this year in particular, there will be a huge focus on Eastern European research, particularly research in Poland. So whether your family is Jewish or not, this conference might be of interest to you because there are going to be a lot of archives and a lot of resources available for you to learn more about the archives in those Eastern European countries, and like I said, particularly in Poland. Now, the Federation of Genealogical Societies is kind of the wrap-up of the official conference season. It starts with Roots Tech, ends with FGS. This year it's going to be in Fort Wayne, Indiana, which is really exciting to those of us who are genealogists because Fort Wayne, Indiana is the home of the 2nd largest genealogical library in the world, the Allen County Public Library, and I am hoping to be able to spend a day at the front or a day at the end of that conference doing some research there in Allen County. But that's going to be the 22nd through the 25th of August. And I have been told that the hotels, the conference rate for the hotels for that event are filling up very quickly. So if that is something that you are interested in, even if you're not certain you're going or not yet, you might want to check out their website. It's the Federation of Genealogical Societies, FGS, Genealogy Conference. If you just do an internet search for that, it should pull it right up. They do have on that page some links to conference rates for the hotel, make some reservations, and then make some solid plans or decisions afterwards. Like I said, Ancestry will be at every one of these events in some form or another. Usually we have a booth in the exhibit hall. Myself and other staff members here at Ancestry come and speak and present and teach classes, and we're available for asking questions and interacting with. And really the benefit of a genealogy conference, like I said, is just getting together with other people who have this passion for family history, for genetic genealogy, for learning and understanding more about our past and documenting that and preserving it for future generations. And it's nice to be among people who get it and get what we do and to learn from them in formal and informal settings. Now, if you're not going to be able to attend a national conference this year, that's fine. There are hundreds of local conferences held all over. If you go to conferencekeeper.org, you'll be able to see details about local events in your area or in your region that might be a little bit more easier for you to get to. Okay, let's talk about new content. We have a lot to talk about. Interestingly enough, over the course of the last month, even though we didn't do constant updates of content to the site, just because there were some periods of time where things were really busy and we didn't want to add new content and create any problems, we still managed to get out more than 78 million new records, which just blows my mind. Now, of course, 65 million of that all come from one content collection, and we'll talk about that at the end. But these are the countries, the main countries that we released content from this month: Canada, Germany, the US, and the UK. So let's just do a quick review of some of that content. Now, if you've never joined us for a What's New episode before, let me just show you right off the bat here how you find new content for yourself. If you click on the search button on Ancestry and scroll down to the card catalog, then once you're in the card catalog, and this is a listing of all 32,913 as of today, databases that are contained on the Ancestry site from all over the world, then you come over here to the sort box and you sort it by date added. And what that does is it takes all the new stuff and it puts it to the top of the list. Now, any one of these databases, if you just move your mouse over it, don't click on anything, just move your mouse over it, you'll get a little pop-up card you can see here, and that will tell you the date that Ancestry published that record collection on the website, give you a little snippet of information about that. So you can see here, we've got this list of new content. Now, I'm going to come over here and I'm actually going to type in Canada, because that's what we're going to look at first. And what you're going to notice here, besides other random pop-ups on my screen, what you're going to notice here is that the first collection that we released this month for Canada was for Prince Edward Island. It's marriage registers from 1832 to 1888. There's about 40,000 of them there in that particular database. We've also got a Newfoundland 1921 Canadian census. We've got Alberta, Canada birth index. That goes from 1870 to 1896. Now, one of the things that you're going to start to see happening, especially as you get more involved in family history research, for those of you that are new, is that sometimes we get these small databases from different archives or different libraries, and we have to put them on the site in the format that the archive provided us with that content. So here you have, for example, this Alberta, Canada birth index. It only covers 26 years. You can see over here it only has about 6,600 names in it, or records in this particular record collection. It's only an index, which means that's all that we were able to obtain from the archive, was an index to the birth records that they hold. Sometimes we're able to get actually the registers themselves, or the full record itself, but it just depends on whoever the archive is that's providing Ancestry with the particular set of records. So always pay attention to the date range, because maybe you're looking for a birth in Alberta, Canada, but it falls outside of that range. So that particular database isn't going to be useful to you. So pay attention to the birth range, pay attention to the title of the database where it is just an index. We will try to notify you of that. And then when you click through to view a specific database, so in this case, these Alberta, Canada birth index records, if you scroll down past the search box, you're going to see a couple of things. One of them is going to be a source descriptor, or source information, and then a little bit of a database description. Now, this particular database description is really brief. Just a couple of sentences with some bullet points about what is included in these records. In this case, the most important thing you're going to want to look at is where Ancestry obtained those records. In this case, the Provincial Archives of Alberta in Edmonton. So basically what this means is the set of records is going to be an index to records that they hold at the Provincial Archives of Alberta. So you do a search, you find your person, it will give you the name and the location and the year and the registration number of that birth, and then you can contact the archives in Edmonton to get the actual register of the birth. So that's how those indexes work. Like I said, sometimes you're going to get more information, and the easiest way to tell on any database if there is more information available is look for what we call the browse box. So when I pull up a database like this Newfoundland, Canada 1921 census, for example, over here on the right-hand side, I've got a browse box. What that tells me automatically before I even do anything else is there's images available. So with the index, it's usually just an index. Just you search and you'll get some text with some information so that you can right away or contact the archive to get a copy of the original image. Where the archive has provided Ancestry with the image, you'll be able to see that we've got a browse box there. That means there will be images in this particular collection. Even better, I oftentimes will use the browse box to see what's included. In this case, the browse is by district in Newfoundland, and that allows me to see what districts are or are not included in this particular set of records. So pay attention to the source information, that database description, look for that browse box. That will tell you if there are original images or if you're going to have to do a little bit more research into some original records. Now, with this list of new Canadian records, starting down here with these Prince Edward Island marriage registers, you're going to see we've got stuff for Newfoundland, Alberta, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island and Nova Scotia. So we've got lots of really great records. Some of them, like this set of New Brunswick marriages, 1789 to 1950. That's a huge time span. There's more than a million, almost 1.5 million records in that specific record collection. So lots of good stuff to dig into for Canada there. Now, next up on our list is going to be Germany. So I still have this list sorted by date added. I'm just going to type Germany here in the title field and click search, and you're going to see that we do have a couple of databases of German records that have been added to the site so far this month. Mostly, here's the thing about German research, if you haven't done any yet, in order to be really effective in German research, you need to know where in Germany your family came from, sometimes down to the specific town, before you can be really effective in your research. Unlike the US, where we have a federal census that covers the whole country, or the UK, where their birth, marriage, and death registers cover the entire country. German records most often are held at a local level. And so you need to understand where in Germany your family was from so that you know what region or area or even sometimes specific town you need to do research in. And part of that is because Germany, as we know it, is a fairly young country. And so the records, there was no unified government until after the mid-1800s. And so we have these little kingdoms and regions that had their own archives and their own systems of record keeping. Sometimes, like I said, even at a town level, they were keeping those records. And so as Ancestry has been acquiring these records, you'll notice some of these database titles are very, very specific and understanding more about where your ancestor was from will help make sure that you're identifying the right people in the right set of records. Now, one thing to point out is that all of the foreign language records, not just the German records, but all of the foreign language records on Ancestry are in the language of the record. You pull up an image of the military record or of the residence registers or whatever, it's going to be in that language. Doesn't mean you can't do that research. I don't speak German, but I have done research in German records. And if you go to the Ancestry YouTube channel, which is probably where you're watching this, and just do a search in our desktop education playlist, you will find a video for German research. And I give you some tips about how to do research in German records, even if you don't speak German. I think I've also done one on Mexico and maybe one on France and one on Italy. And so regardless of what country you're doing research in, you do not have to speak the language. Certainly it's helpful if you do, or if you have someone in your family or circle of research friends that does, but you don't have to speak the language to be successful in at least beginning to do some of that research. So those are the German records that Ancestry has released this past month. Now, next up is the US records. There have been quite a few of them, most notably, I'm just going to clear that Germany search. It'll take a second here. Hit refresh. There we go. Okay. So we have some records from the Western United States. Most notably here, we've got Idaho and Montana. And we have a couple million records there from Montana marriages from 1865 all the way through 1987. Now, one of the things to note if you're new to family history research is that in the United States, every state controls their own privacy laws. So you'll have some states where marriage records are considered public record and they're available online freely here through 1987 with no privacy restrictions. Some states, like Idaho, for example, they're only available through 1967 because they have maybe a 50-year privacy law set on their marriages. Birth, marriages, and deaths don't all have the same privacy laws. Here in Utah, for example, where I was born, there is a 100-year privacy law on birth records. So my birth record is not available anywhere except to me if I go down to the county health department, where I had to go to pick up a copy of my birth certificate a few years ago. My siblings, all four of my younger siblings, were born in California. And California is an open record state, which means there are no privacy laws governing birth, marriage, or death records. And so my brother and sister's birth records are available online because California has made those readily accessible. So every state in the United States has different privacy laws. So depending on where your family's from or where your research takes you, you need to become a little bit familiar with those. And sometimes it's just as easy as typing in the name of the state in the title field here on Ancestry's card catalog, and it will show you what databases we have available, where we obtained those databases. And wherever we obtain those databases from, sometimes that's a good clue about where you might be able to go to get additional information. Because just because a record's not publicly available, meaning we can't put it on the internet, doesn't mean you can't still get a copy of it. For example, like I said, I got a copy of my own birth certificate, even though Utah has a 100-year privacy law. My dad was able to get copies of his grandparents' birth certificates, even though there were some privacy laws governing those. So you can still sometimes contact the state and get access to those records. It's just that they won't be made available online. So as you can see here, Montana marriages go through 1987. I did want to point out one other thing here. We've also got a set of Montana divorce records. Divorce records in most states are considered public record, and Ancestry has started to obtain some of those, but you're going to notice most of them are going to be for more contemporary time periods. There's this really weird thing that happens when people get into family history research. They need a lot of more recent records, and those are all governed by various privacy laws. And then as we start doing ancestral research, we need some of the more distant records, and sometimes those records exist, and sometimes they exist online, and we love when that happens. So just become familiar with what kinds of records are available. I don't love divorce, but I love divorce records because very often they will not only list the divorce information, but they'll list information about the marriage, they'll list information sometimes about the children that were a product of that marriage. And so they're a really rich resource for family history research. And don't get hung up on just researching your parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. Always be sure to look at the brothers and sisters and the aunts and uncles and the nieces and nephews, because sometimes a record that's created for one of them might have the clue that you need to go back another generation. So that is just some of the US records. Let's talk finally, let's just wrap it up here talking about some of the UK records, well, one set of UK records in particular, and that is the UK Electoral Registers. This is the collection where Ancestry has added 65 million new records to our website. Now, these electoral registers are current. So if you are in the UK, it is very likely, if you were of voting age by 2010, that you will be included in these. These are for 2003 through 2010. So this particular set of records is for doing more contemporary research. If you're looking for information about cousins, some of your DNA matches, trying to figure out some of those connections, maybe figuring out where people have moved. Now, like I said, as always, scroll down and read that database description. It's just going to give you some information about what's included in that particular set of records. And then one of the things that I like to do is sometimes, you may not know this, but the lived-in field on the search forms is the single field that I use more often than anything else, especially when I'm first into a new set of records, because I want to start to get familiar with the records. I want to understand how they work, and I want to understand more about what's included and what's not included. And so very often I will just do a search by a lived-in location with no names at all, just to kind of start to filter through the data or understand what's included and what's not included. So pay attention, close attention to that lived-in field. Another search tactic that I sometimes use is I'll do just a last name search, last name only, especially in a record collection like this, because it gives you a really clear idea. So for example, if I type in Cowan, that's my last name, mark that exact and click search, it's going to tell me that from 2003 to 2010, there were only 16,037 records for people with the last name of Cowan. That tells me that it's probably a fairly rare name in the UK for that particular time period. So that's another search tactic that I use, especially when I'm getting into new databases, just to kind of get familiar with what am I going to find, what is the record going to look like, and then once I've done that, then I can dive in and really start doing some searches for specific individuals in my tree, specific information that I am looking for. Well, hopefully that was useful. There is dozens of other content collections that you can look into there on that list. I don't have time, unfortunately, to go over every single one of them. There are always little hidden gems to be found, but hopefully you'll have some fun digging into some of those new record collections and make some great new discoveries. If you do make some new discoveries, I'd love to hear about it here in the notes, or here in the comments rather, on the YouTube channel. And also, we have put together the calendar for the next 3 months worth of videos. I'm really excited about some of the series of videos that we'll be doing. For those of you who are new to Ancestry, we're going to have a Getting Started series. For those of you who've been with us for a long time, that Getting Started series can't help. It's kind of like Coach Wooden of UCLA teaching his basketball players how to put their socks on. Sometimes you just have to go back to the basics, and it's good to get that refresher and do a little course correction as we go. So some really great things coming up for you. We'll have those up on the Facebook page in the next few days so that you can see the topics and the dates that are going to be for each of the videos coming up. Or just subscribe here to the Ancestry YouTube channel, and that means you'll get notified every time we upload a new video. Until next time, this is Crista Cowan. Have fun climbing your family tree.